Welcome back, spiritual community of one. This is Higher Density Living. This is your host, Alex, and I'm here with
Jason Riggs.
There he is. Sorry, folks. I was waiting for him to hit the mic.
No. I was mesmerized with your shirt. So sorry.
No, you like the shirt.
Yeah, so tell everybody what, because they can't, well, I mean, they'll be able to see in some video.
Yeah, no.
But what does your shirt have on it?
No, this is a little like synchronistic. So, everyone's likes the term sacred geometry. I think sacred is kind of like a misnomer. Because nature is built on geometry, so there's nothing really sacred about it. It's just what it is, right? You don't have to call it sacred.
Right.
I think it's just like a marketing term. But beyond that, I have these two Egyptian figures on the right and left facing each other opposed. And it's Ra, the Egyptian sun god.
The Egyptian sun god.
And that was for a brief time. So the animism that they had in ancient Egypt was that everything had a spirit to it, right? You would worship it. So everything had a god, whether it be the wheat field or the water or the sun or the air or the land. Everything had its own god. And then there were a couple of guys that came in, King Ramses II, Akhenaten, and another select few that said, hey, we're just going to focus on one god, okay? Not in the sense of it being monotheistic, but the fact that this god encompasses all of these other gods that you're talking about, right? It is the unification principle of everything. It is that source energy that it all comes from, right? And that was Ra. That's who they began to worship, right? The sun disk, right? And you got the temple of Heliopolis, which was the temple of the sun, right? And that became the main figure of worship.
And we're going to talk about the temple today. We're going to talk about the pyramids.
Right.
We're going to talk about the sun god Ra. And we're going to do probably a 10-minute show on onanism.
Oh, I think we should.
Yeah, because I think that's really important. We have that actually in our higher density living.
Yeah. But Jason, I don't understand. What does all this Egyptian stuff possibly have to do with what the hell's going on in our practical daily lives? What are you talking about? This is nonsense.
What happens? So, it's really interesting, and I want people to DM us if they. I think this is really important, and they can go to Instagram, Higher Density Living, Facebook, Twitter. We're at HI.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah,
like you're smoking a joint.
Yeah, but that's not what we're about. And then Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, we're all at Higher Density Living. And so I encourage people to subscribe to that. And then, message us, DM us, because I've had people talk about that they felt, I even watched a Joe Rogan podcast the other day, and the lady's like, I have this connection with Egypt. And I feel like, she goes, I don't know if I believe in past bodies or not, but I feel like something was connecting me back to Egypt. And I've heard that from multiple people that I've interacted with here recently.
Even interacting with me.
Yes.
I don't know why that. I don't know what the hell it is. You and I both, we talk about reincarnation, right?
We did a podcast on it.
It's not a belief. It's a scientific, recorded fact. It's a study. It's a truth, right? It's just what happens. But I'm always like, I gotta go check out the pyramids. I think about them all the time for no damn reason. Why am I attracted to the desert? Well, I don't know. I moved from the East Coast, now I'm living in the desert of the United States.
And I moved from a real rainy area to the desert, and I have so much more vibration, so much energy.
And you and I are heavily attracted to the sun.
Yes, we're heavily attracted, yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about it. And for no good reason whatsoever, And you and I also resonate really well with hawks.
Yes, exactly.
Hawks or eagles, either of their forms.
Everywhere I go, there's a hawk everywhere.
Yeah, I haven't dived directly at the window of my car. Right? Or like I've showed you, I'll be sleeping and I'll wake up and they'll be outside the window staring at me.
Yeah, I just have them on posts looking at me.
Yeah, they're always
distance.
Dude, they're just hanging.
They're always sitting, and looking at me.
They're always hanging out.
So, there was hawks in Egypt.
Yeah, all the time.
In fact,
think about the symbology. You got the sun disk and you got the wings coming out the side, right? And so that's what it is, because they figured the hawk is the thing closest to the sun, and it has the all-seeing eye, so it has the ability to look down and see everything around it, always be in total observance of what's going on. So the relation of the hawk, its freedom, the source, that energy coming from above, it was the most perfect animal to embody that, and that's why you see it in the symbology.
So what is the head of a bird? Does Ra has a head?
Well, that's why Ra shares the head of that bird, right? So that bird-shaped head, because it's a parallel to that animal and where it sits in the sky, the way it looks, its relationship to the sun. And every time you go to see a hawk, those tail feathers that come through, they're shining through the sun, right? That light. So both of those things, they share some sort of relationship with one another. And they're highly intelligent.
Well, I know Native Americans, revered the hawk, and also those tail feathers. There's a thing with that.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know all of that. If you're a Native American, please send us an email.
No, we'd love to know more about it.
You can email Alex at higherdensityliving.com.
I check it out. I check that email all the time. Even though a lot of people don't email me on it, I'm always watching because I want to know.
Yeah, and then it's Jason at higherdensityliving.com. But in our website, higherdensityliving.com, you can go on there and also click on that.
Yep.
There's bios, and then email us from there. But we would love, if you're Native American, we would love to be able, if you have stories or traditions or something,
you
can, email us, call us, share us with. We could have you on the show real quick, and you can share your story with that.
Or if you're an Egyptian in America.
Yeah, if you're from Egypt, yeah.
Come on over.
Maybe past lives, we'd love to be able to get that, because that's what we're gonna talk about.
Yeah, even if you feel that you've had a past life in Egypt, let's talk about it.
Yes.
There's no reason to deny an experience or a feeling, because to say someone didn't have a feeling, how are you to judge?
Right. Exactly.
If it's real to them and the feeling, then it's real. Because everything we experience, whether it's feeling physical or non-physical, that is an experience, and it is real. That isn't happening.
Yeah, it's not something that is fake.
If that's resonating with you, well, talk to us about it.
Right, exactly. Because what resonates with you
is probably going to resonate with someone else.
So today, we're going to get into something pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So I want to warn everyone. What warning, like you had the parental advisory on.
Yeah.
Because we're in a hip-hop station right now. So you remember NWA had those, and it was very controversial, their songs and stuff.
The black and white thing on the bottom of their CDs.
So I want us to give a warning on this.
Okay, here's my warning. I encourage everyone to think holistically. And when I say think holistically, that is take all of the information we've talked about, okay, in all of our previous episodes, and put that together into a framework of how you're going to view and listen and interpret the things we're about to tell you, okay? Without just putting it to the side and be like, no, absolutely not. That's not possible. That's bullshit. I don't want to hear it. Well, hold on a second. If you listen to our previous episodes, you're more than willing to get to the point to listen and maybe take some grain of salt from what we have to share with you from this story that we're going to delve into.
Yeah, and so there are books.
Yes, 5.
There's 5 books. And you can go on eBay and buy them used. We encourage people to buy used books.
Yeah, go to A-Books, ABE Books.
Yeah, you buy all your books from there. I used to go on eBay and from Goodwill or somebody like that. I even here lately it was really cool. I got 4 books in a row that were from a library, different library.
Dude, I love getting library books.
Yeah, and it had the little, what is it, Dewey Decimal?
Yeah, someone will come to my house and be like, did you steal those? Like, no, I bought them. I bought them.
I love that. But you can buy them. They're also, let me get this website out.
Go ahead.
This is where we're going to start from.
Yeah, why don't we give them a plug?
So it's www.llresearch.org. That's the letter L and then another L and then research.org. On there, they have all the audio that we're going to talk about today.
Right.
The original audio from like the 80s. And we're going to get into all this, the whole backstory. They have the books for free.
Yes, they do.
You can also, if you want to look at a wiki page, you can go to wiki.lawofone.info.
Right.
And you can type in the Law of One. You can type in, what are the books called? Ra?
Yeah, so you have the teachings of Ra, right?
Right.
So that'd be your first one. And then it's the Law of One, Book 2, right? Law of One, Book 3, A Humble Messenger of Ra. Law of One, Book 4, A Humble Messenger of Ra. Law of One, Book 5.
So, I want everyone to know, Alex has studied this. He's read all 5 books, probably multiple times.
Multiple times.
And you've studied all this, for years.
Intently. Because what happened was I read it once, and then I realized that there was so much depth to every single sentence. And I'm not saying that as an exaggeration. Every single sentence within this book has so much depth.
Yes.
You could unpack it for weeks per sentence.
And I want to say disclaimer, you've been into this for years.
Yeah.
You introduced it to me, I read book 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked you, I was like, Alex, do you mind doing a podcast on this? I just read book 1. I have a study guide, which there's study guides online.
Correct.
And so I figured as I read each book, then, because I'm learning, so I'm like the guy that is starting out, like a lot of you that are out there. You're the experienced one, so I figured we could play it this way.
That's a nice way to do it.
And so after today, when this podcast is over, tonight I will start book 2.
That's
and
exciting.
Then, we'll do other podcasts and stuff like that. And when I get done with book 2, Not that we're all making it about me and my reading schedule.
Screw you, Jason. Let's do things when you want to do them.
But I figured we could break it down that way because it's, you have an amazing memory. My memory's not.
Please don't flatter me.
Well, I mean, you do, yeah. My memory is not the best in the West, so no pun intended.
Yeah, because we're actually in Albuquerque.
Yeah,
I knew you were going to say that. We need those cognitive things, you know what I mean?
We're gonna have to get those. Or they can give them to us and they can be our sponsor.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see my Raw Living Spirulina?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah, and then they're like posting.
They repost your stuff constantly.
Yeah, I did a funny one the other day.
I loved it. I loved it with the music.
Superstar.
Yeah. Oh man.
Because that song started playing right when I opened it.
Really?
Yeah. On the radio, it just popped on the radio. I started my car. I got ready to open the box.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen it, you can go anywhere and type in Raw Living Spirulina. You shared that with me.
Green gold.
It's green gold. I do it in the morning when I first wake up.
Yep.
I take 3 big, huge spoonfuls.
That's awesome.
And then at lunch, I do 3 spoonfuls at work.
Yeah.
And I just have it in my fridge at work. Works perfect.
Who needs a damn vitamin when you have everything on the
don't
planet
even need
packed
to
into one jar?
You don't even need to eat.
No, you really don't.
It tastes like yogurt.
It's awesome.
Well, it doesn't even have a taste.
It has no taste.
Yeah, and it's just pure spirulina, natural, refrigerated.
Oh, I love it.
We just gave a plug.
I'm thinking about it right now.
The Law of One.
Well, it's a group, right? Can we say that? So we got
Raw.
We got a little backdrop here.
Okay, no. I want to go into, because I don't want people to discredit us. I want to go into the scientists first.
Yeah.
And go into that process.
Okay, go for it.
So here's what happened. This started in the 1960s. Is when it started, and these guys spent 20 years trying to work with this whole idea of receiving messages, or what we call channeling.
Right. And if you don't know what channeling is, okay, people have been doing it since the, pre-Queen Victoria with John Dee and like all these other folks, right? It's where someone sits in a mode of silence, okay?
Right.
Or a state of trance where they're not actually awake, right? They're in an in-between state. And they either speak words that come to them slowly, or they write these words down on a sheet of paper to record them, right? Through some sort of form, like people used to call it automatic writing back in the day.
Right.
Back then in the huge age of spiritualism in the late 1800s when people were like getting wild about it. That's where it kind of took off. But beyond that, it has become a little bit more of a scientific approach over time. There's been, more stringent protocols in place so that people can determine, well, you're actually receiving something you have, no prior knowledge of.
Right.
And this group spent 20 years prior to this contact, right? It was a smaller group before the third person, the main person in the story, shows up. That these 2 individuals had came together trying to, receive information from higher, more advanced spiritual beings. And that's the point we find ourselves at. So how else did it open it up on there?
And that's what I want to get into. I'm actually opening the book right now. The book is called The Law of One, Book 1. And it is, the front cover's blue and red. It's got Egyptian symbols on it. It's called The Raw Material, by Raw, Humble Messenger of the Law of One.
Right.
When we get into the book, we have a guy by the name of Don Elkins.
That's right, Don.
And the book was an exact transcript from tape recordings of 26 sessions of communication with an extraterrestrial being. They had started the experiment, this is what I was getting into, they had started the experiment, they said in 1962, and refined the process for 19 years. So they were working, was there 3 of them, or 4 of them?
2 at a time, and then they moved into 3.
And they were working, and in 1981, something happened.
Right.
And this changed, they talk about it, it changed profoundly, the quality and the precision of the messages that we were getting. And this is really interesting, the way they got the message, and we'll get into all that. But they formed this research group, the llresearch.org.
Yep.
And then from there, they began to receive this, they call it a body of data.
That's essentially what it is, a body of data. A large amount of it, highly refined.
So what they began doing was, as they were receiving this, people were calling it so-called paranormal phenomena, and people were beginning in psychic tricks, and people were beginning to, channeling started coming on the scene in the 80s, and you had, what was the gal that was a channeler and really big actress.
Yeah, she was. I know what you're talking about. And there's a lot of people, and like mediums.
Right.
Remember who's that guy? He had that huge show.
Yes, yeah.
Oh man, why can't I remember his name?
I know who you're talking about.
I speak to the dead.
Yeah,
you know what
exactly,
I mean?
Yeah.
And like women just start like bawling their eyes out in the crowd, like, "Oh my God, Grandma!" But beyond that, can we consider something here? So you have Don Elkins,
right.
who is I believe he had do you have a PhD? He might have. He might have been a doctor. And
right.
he was also a pilot.
Right.
You also had Carla Ruckert, if I pronounced her last name correctly. Carla was the channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was the actual person receiving the information. So assume her body's like one giant radio antenna.
Right.
She was allowing information to come through her, and then in a trance-like state, she would then project this information vocally. Okay? And then you had Jim. Do we have Jim's last name? I don't know why I can't remember.
Yeah.
Jim McCarthy.
We're going to get to him, yeah.
It's Jim McCarthy, right? So you have to understand that for 2 years, for the culmination of these tape recordings, right, which came this body of work that turned into these books, you had a woman lying on a table,
mm-hmm.
okay, spouting out information that was in perfect chronological coherence the entire time, and there was no contradiction to one part of her entire story. And when I say her story, anything she said,
right.
of the information that was channeled, for a 2-year period.
Mm-hmm.
For 2 years straight, Jason, I want you to sit here and I want you to tell me a story of information, okay? And I don't want you to say one part of it that does not contradict with another.
Yeah, that would
and I want all of it to align perfectly, and all of it to back up every other piece of information that you've said.
So, as we look at different spiritual manuscripts,
yes,
then we should see these books. That's what I viewed it as. When I read it, I was like, well, this is another spiritual manuscript.
Yes.
That we should look at and value. If we had libraries of all these spiritual manuscripts that were out there, this should be involved in that.
Yeah, and so people are going to wonder, like, why raw? Like, I don't understand.
Right.
So, us on Earth, we give things names. Okay, it's how we identify with things or of things. Okay? Like, you are Jason, I am Alex. It's a more comfortable thing because we couldn't just look at someone and then just, be able to differentiate them between someone else and their energetic signature because we're really not that sensitive enough.
Right.
So we have to have a name to it. So the reason it has the name Ra is because this entity, when I say entity, this is, stretch your mind here for a second, it is a collective consciousness. So imagine everyone here on Earth coming together in their thought power to think about one thing for one moment. Okay? And then you give that thought, that whole cloud of consciousness coming together, if you give it a name, you would identify that thing as, I don't know, whatever you'd want to call it, but they identify as Ra. So it's the collective consciousness of an entire group of a species of enlightened spiritual beings over the period of millions and millions and millions and millions of deaths and rebirths, deaths and rebirths, deaths and rebirths, and refinement so that they can spiritually evolve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have an energetic signature, but the only way we know them is through our previous interactions when they were here during ancient Egypt. And this was here in the book, right, from a historical perspective. When the book opens, they have some earlier comments that were like, well, why do you call yourself Ra? Well, it's because that's what people are most comfortable with identifying this energy with.
And that's what he says here. He says, our research group uses what I prefer to call tuned trance telepathy.
Right.
And I'm reading this from the book. To communicate with an extraterrestrial race called Ra. We use the English language because it is known by Ra. In fact, Ra knows more of it than I do. Ra landed on Earth about 11,000 years ago as a sort of extraterrestrial missionary with the objective of helping Earthmen with his mental evolution. And then it talks about, we're going to get into this, there was a failed attempt,
mm-hmm.
and then restarted that all over again. And this is Don Elkins sharing
This is Don Elkins sharing it. And when Don says that Ra has a better handling of the English language, when I first read the Ra material,
right,
I'm like, this woman would have to have like a speaker system or like headphones in her like ears at full time was someone citing a thesaurus or a dictionary of words you've never even heard of in your entire
Yes,
life.
Exactly.
And then when you look it up, you're like, my God, I never knew that would have fit so perfectly into this sentence or this thought.
Yeah, even the sentences have a vibrational pattern to them.
So every sentence is mathematically balanced. This is to show you the intensity and the evolutionary status of this collective group that is channeling this information through. What that means is the sentence will carry weight on both sides. It's like when you're adding a mathematical equation, this plus this equals this.
Right.
It will always be in balance of weight is what is being said against the subject in the entire sentence. So the energy, every sentence can stand alone on its own. It needs no other sentence to go back and re-explain that sentence. And that's how this collective group speaks. So when you read it, it's a lot to take in at once.
Right.
Right? And it takes multiple times to read it. What was your experience when you started reading these words?
And that's why it took me so long to read the first book, because I had to go back over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Not that it's not dense. I don't want people to think that. It's not like reading a scientific paper. None of that. I sent you a scientific paper the other day.
Yes, you did.
And we're going to go into that. Some of the point, birds.
Yeah.
That was awesome, though. I don't know if you read it, but you need to read it. Really,
No, with the avian species and them dying off.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
really fucking cool. And not cool, but...
Yeah, no, I understand.
Because we're always... I want everybody to know we're digressing here. We're going to get back into Raw. This is part of Raw. We're always focused on the bees, which is... But we don't realize the birds are dying off faster than the bees.
What's that old comment? It's the birds and the bees?
Yeah.
You know?
Flowers in the trees.
Yeah.
So, Raw... And this is what he says. Raw is a sixth-density social memory complex.
Yes.
So, like you said, collective conscious, it's a social memory complex. Sixth density. We're going to get into the first density, second density, third. So I want you guys to bear with me. When we hear the word density, we're going to give an explanation. I have it in my notes right here.
Yeah.
We're going to go over it. You know it. We're going to go over all the different densities.
Great.
So, Raw in its nature is a sixth-density social memory complex. Since Earth is near the end of the third density cycle of evolution, this means that Raw is 3 evolutionary cycles ahead of us. In other words, Raw present state of evolution is millions of years in advance of Earthmen's.
Right.
So this, when you think of it, him being millions of years ahead of us, it's a lot more enlightened, higher conscious. So when we read these words, we need to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah,
if you want to use time, where they're coming from.
But they don't come from a place of time. That's the problem. And they come from a conceptualized world or universe of complete unity, where there is no polarization, there is no black or white, there is only gray, there is only perfect balance, there's only a balance of energies, and that's how they see everything. There are no paradoxes, all paradoxes are solved, okay? Because everything ties back to one thing, right? And that's the creative source energy. That is what.
And whether you believe this or not, it's interesting to read.
Whether or not.
Tell me. Yeah. So you introduced these books to your dad. What happened?
Oh my God. Okay. So.
How old's your dad? 60s?
He's mid-60s.
Yeah. Almost as old as me.
Shredded. Like shredded. This man's in phenomenal shape. He not once, throughout his entire life, has believed anything about ghosts or any of this other shit. Like anything that's spiritual.
Him like a perfect stoic?
He would be as stoic gets, right? Yeah. If you ripped him out of like early AD, like Italy, with the rest of the Stoic philosophers, he's standing right there. I came across these books by total happenstance, right? I was just doing my own research, and you find yourself down certain rabbit holes, right. And I took to this rabbit hole, and I shared this with him. This man glued himself to this information. It was like he was drinking like life out of the book that he has missed for the past 65 years he's been on this planet. He's never experienced anything else. It is all he can talk about. It's the only way he thinks, right? It has changed his perspective on everything. There's no forceful pattern of it.
No,
I'd only shared with him.
Whether even if I'm skeptical on Raw, because I just read it to read it. Because you told me. It just changed your perspective on life. It's
brutal.
Even if you don't, because like, even if you don't 100% buy into it,
yeah,
it still changes your perspective.
Remember what I told you? I said, when you're going to read it, you're never going to be able to look at the world the same way again.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not from a fear-based way of doing it.
No, opposite.
The lens of how you view things becomes lightweight, feathery. It becomes free, right? And so when you read it, there's really no turning back. And it's not in a bad way. You are just helping yourself evolve further mentally, spiritually, and physically at the same time. Because they're all intertwined.
Yeah, like I can read the Bible or the Tao or some, Buddhist monk. I may not be a Buddhist.
Yeah.
I can read their stuff and then turn around and I'm like, holy shit, this stuff is good.
Yeah, it's good.
Be like water. You don't have to be...
But
think about it. Like that principle alone, it's like, no, be a rock. Water over time can, we need to be fluid. It's just truth.
But it's almost like, I gotta say, it's almost beyond that. Here's why I say that. There are no strange metaphors.
No, there's no. He doesn't use metaphors.
Extremely explicit and clear down to the every I and every T. Everything about it is so straightforward. You're just like, my gosh. You can only sit there and feel like someone just wallops you off the side of the head and you're trying to like recollect your thoughts.
Yes.
Because it's so much information coming to you at once. You know what I mean? And you're like, man, how am I going to interpret or digest this information I've just taken in?
But, getting back to the book, I love in the beginning the transparency. What threw me off was the UFO stuff.
But
personally,
you have to talk about the context of that for Don Elkins.
Right. Because he was a ufologist.
Yeah, for a long time, he wanted to explain and study in some sort of in scientific format the UFO phenomenon.
Right.
And in the earlier parts of the book, he keeps driving towards this point. He wants to ask about these UFOs, right, and this technology. But he consistently receives a response from this social memory complex, this higher collective consciousness, this highly evolved spiritual group, saying, this is not important. This is not the focus. What you are talking about is a distortion, a delusion. It is not the truth.
And that, to explain that, you're going to see this in the first book. He wants to know. He's like, I tapped into something that's amazing. I want to know all the mysteries of life.
No.
So we're going to get into it.
No, this is great.
He asks questions about the pyramids. He asks questions about UFOs. He asks people about books.
Yeah.
Different people's names he throws out there. And over and over again, they're like, it's almost like, it's so funny because it's, for me, and this is a wrong interpretation of it, but this is how I view it. It's almost like, here's how I view it as, in my simplistic. It's almost like Raw is like, what the fuck? You have an opportunity to talk to a higher collective consciousness that's been around past time, and you're asking me about these stupid fucking questions, you human?
You talking about floating discs and pyramids?
Okay, we'll answer. They're like, we'll answer this question.
Yeah.
But let's move on to love and light.
Yeah.
And how we can transmit that information, how we can change your world and move you to another density.
And move you out of a fear-based system of thought and all this other stuff. Stop worrying about floating shiny discs. Yeah. I know that is enticing, but what you're asking does not carry weight through the timelessness of time in the universe.
So you can almost, and I'm not saying that they're pissed off, but you can almost see okay, you have us for this brief time because, and I want to get into this, I want to get into Carla right now.
Yeah, okay.
It was Carla L. Ruckert is her name, and she met Don Elkins in 1962. He was a psychic research college professor at the time when she had met him. He had done over 200 hypnotic age regressions, probing past birth experiences, investigating reincarnation. Mm-hmm. So in 1962, she said she joined the experiment with Don, which he had developed the help of Harold Price.
Yeah.
And people don't realize who Harold Price was. He was one of the main engineers for the Ford Motor Company. Price had acquainted Don with some information Don found quite interesting, and this was all metaphysical extraterrestrial stuff. So Don's coming from the guy late at night, conspiracy theory dude. Mm-hmm. Don's coming that way. Carla's just kind of interested in this, and it's funny how all through society. Go ahead.
Talk about Carla. She was a massive believer in the Bible.
Yes.
That is how she grew up.
Yes.
That is how she lived her life, and she never changed that. But aside from the dogmas of that religion, she was open enough to receive messages from something that her religion told her otherwise.
Right.
was bad, right? Or immoral, or you shouldn't mess with it because that's something dark, right? You shouldn't meddle in those things. But she was open enough to receive that information.
Yes, open enough to the point in January of 1970, she left her position as a school librarian.
Yes.
In Louisville, and went and moved and started working for Don full time. And this was the time where he began to work on UFO research and trying to put the puzzles pieces together of that phenomenon that was happening, pretty hardcore. Because you have to realize in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, the UFO phenomenon, we talked about this, and I don't want to get into weeds on this, but I'm dishing you up here. A lot of stuff was happening with the government.
Yeah.
I mean, here in New Mexico, in this whole area, that was causing a lot of interest. If you believe in extraterrestrials, that was causing a lot of interest. Like, what the hell are these humanoids doing right now?
Can you guys stop tooling around with that stuff? It was the onset of our nuclear technology.
Right.
Right. Because when you touch this stuff, it can either do a lot of good or it can do a lot of harm. And so that's when you bring the awareness of people that understand that there's a greater balance beyond yourself that you upset when you go and you try and create rips, through universe,
right,
or the Earth by blowing all this shit up. Okay, so you garner a lot of that attention, but he was so focused on explaining the phenomenon, and he was frankly obsessed in the beginning with trying to understand like extraterrestrials, like little gray men and these ships and where they're coming from, who's in control, right? And then he almost gets schooled.
Yes.
This is the best way to describe it. He has someone that is a group that is millions and millions and millions of years more advanced than him, schooling him, telling him to stop thinking that way.
It's like a middle school 4 foot, 80-pound white kid, and then trying to play basketball with LeBron James.
Yeah,
you're gonna get schooled.
You're gonna get schooled, right?
I mean, it's just
so.
Happen.
Out of respect and free will for the choice of his questions,
right,
they were answered. But then the Ra collective consciousness, the Ra group, or we will just call Ra from here on out, says that I understand that you have focused on this, but we want to tell you the things that are truly timeless, that are more important to your evolution, the things that will last. Because these things, technology comes and goes. That's not really important.
The pyramids, whatever, yeah.
All that stone, it withers away over time, comes and goes.
Right.
These things are not important, but the things that are timeless are these archetypal lessons, right? The evolution of the spirit, these processes that we have already been through for millions and millions of years. Those are the things that will always stay. So it's important that we focus on these things, that you align with those sort of questions. And they were given every opportunity, and you see in the first part of the first book, that he spends a lot of time trying to explain what was his perverse goal that he was trying to accomplish, when he realized that he can serve a higher purpose, he can help more people, and they can spread a message of a higher truth than talking about something that is contended so heavily, which is UFOs and like all this other stuff, right? And it took him only till the later sections of the book to realize that, wait a minute, this channel, this information, this group, this opportunity we have right now is far more important than dealing with my earlier obsessions that I used to have and filling out my own personal goal, when I can now help the rest of the planet evolve spiritually. Right. And then that's where it leaves us. And so you have Carla and she's
Dawn.
And Dawn and Jim was the third party figure that had to be in there.
Yeah, and it wasn't till, so she's working for him 1970.
Yeah.
It wasn't till like 1977, it was in January of 1977, where, Don had kept encouraging her to get that. He saw that she had this ability for channeling, so she kept encouraging her, and they went and saw, these gifted channelers and stuff like that.
To learn.
Reverend.
Yeah.
She had a really strong, like you said, Christian background. And so, there was hymns and the Lord's Prayer and all that involved, and you'll read about that. But it wasn't until they began to really understand what was going on in 1980, and when LL research became
a thing.
Yeah, a thing. And it
like
was
a relationship. We're a thing now.
Research and Development Labs is what they called it.
Yep.
And then from there, they began. I mean, you're talking 10 years now. She started to work for him in 1970. It's 1980 right now.
She's 10 years improving her ability to channel information.
With hundreds of failed attempts. And lots of tests over and over again. Him pushing her into the UFO stuff.
Different protocols, everything.
And that's why I like how it's so honest. and then them talking to abductees and going through that whole project, him writing a book, but even after that, that psychic demonstration of the paranormal events was what was intriguing Don more than anything, and that's where he realized he had something with Carla.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of get into a little bit of what exactly was happening on the scientific side of things, because you know that. And in the book they talk about this, and I want you to explain this. They say a magnetic field is nothing but a mathematical method of expressing the relative motion between electrical fields.
Right.
Electrical fields are complex mathematical interpretations of a total empirical observation stated as Coulomb's law.
Coombs law.
Yeah, Coulomb's law. In other words, our forest of scientific knowledge actually is made up of trees about which we understand nothing except their effect and their existence. Because science is going to play a huge role in what's going to be happening to get to the point to be able to communicate with Ra.
Right. So, when we talk about a field, right?
Right.
They were trying to figure out, how do I tune different fields together, like two different magnets? How do I get them to either oppose each other equally or come together equally? So they had to understand from the base the fundamentals of how the makeup of our material in the universe was working. And that's when he looked heavily to Dewey Larson. Dewey Larson was a physicist. He had some fantastic theories and essays on, things that Newton had missed and things that Einstein had missed. And these ideas of equilibrium and states of balance were the most fundamental things that needed to be looked at.
And it wasn't, I don't want to use the word missed, it's more of Newton didn't take the time to study more into the laws of motion.
That's excellent. Yes.
Yeah. So, and the book talks about that. So that's not me coming up with something.
No, that was fantastic, Jason. That was really well thought out.
So yeah, it was reading from the book.
My God.
So Newton, if he would have penetrated more deeply, and then Einstein assertion that everything is relative, that relativistic, it says, is considering the size of natural phenomena by considering the size of our galaxy. So I want us to understand the science part.
Yeah.
For those that have a logical brain like you do, Alex, of what's going to happen when we bring Carla on the scene, speaking to Ra.
All right, that's great. So, if you're walking around like a tuning fork, right, and we've talked about vibration in our past episodes, if you're like out of coherence, well, when you do that, your energy gets scattered in a whole bunch of different directions. It's not very directed, right? It's not channeled in one place. It's not coherent. Carla was walking around like a fantastic tuning fork.
That's what she was.
Yeah, her energetic signature, right? The way she tuned and she was able to receive information, like, keying in on a radio, was the exact keying in that this information was being put out by a highly refined signal, right? So if your signal is super clear, but your wavelength is super tiny, in some radio channels, they're pretty strong and you can move back and forth.
Right.
And you can still kind of hear them even though you're tuned into a different station. Well, imagine you had to be so precisely tuned into the station to receive this information. That's what she was. So as she came in, the group, as a system of tuning forks, the three of them, increased the amplitude, right? The volume of energy that was actually coming out of the group. So their ability to receive, matching that vibration, was then able to pull in more of this highly refined energy, because the group was receiving it better, like one strong magnet with a field that wanted to combine with this other field, right? So you have three fields coming together to create one unified field. And within doing that, allowed them the ability to open up to this contact. And so when they looked at the ideas of motion and energy in the universe and equilibrium, the three had a state of equilibrium in what they were doing that was open and responsive enough to receive information from another highly tuned tuning fork somewhere far out in the galaxy.
And I want to open up the first statement on this introduction to Ra material because it's exactly what you just said. So Ra says, and he says this, he says, Ra, I am Ra. He always says that when he talks.
Right.
I have not spoken through this instrument before. We had to wait, and I want you to talk about this, we had to wait until she was precisely tuned.
Right.
As we send a narrow band vibration.
Oh, that's it. Wow, that's funny that you brought that up. I didn't even know you were going to say that. So they state that I am Ra every single time they speak for 2 years straight.
I love the words I am too. I mean,
Yeah, right? It is a confirmation of the unification of who they are. That's what they're doing, is the total embodiment of unity within itself described in 2 words, I am. Right?
so in the Bible we have that over and over again.
All over the
You know, me studying the Bible.
constantly, right?
Yeah, it's I
so
am,
they're saying,
right?
I am that I am all the time, right? So they are the creative source energy. They embody it. And putting raw at the end of that sentence is saying this is the energetic signature by which people associate us. That is as simple as that gets, right?
So what is the precisely tune as we send a narrow band vibration?
Right. So they send a narrow band, right? So they send such a specific frequency of information, right? So as they're releasing an energetic signature, her brain has to translate, or her consciousness has to translate this information and then have it come out into English. Okay? So if I have an emotion or a feeling that doesn't make me feel good, and you ask me what's going on, you know how I have to explain that to you? Right? I put that into words because you're wondering if I'm feeling better, or what's going on with me.
Right.
I have to explain an emotion, something that didn't have an actual description to it. I have to describe it for you. So what is going on is she is describing an energetic signature of information that is being connected from one tuning fork to the next. It's like 2 things in the key of C coming together to create a louder key of C. And then she's translating that information in a trance-like state to English words over and over and over for 2 years straight. Okay? So in order for her to get to that point, she had to come to alignment and terms with herself that she was open enough to receive this information, because even if you have the skill set but you're not open to listening to that sound, right? If you don't want to tune yourself or act in a certain format,
Right.
you're not going to be open to something, right? If you're already going into reading a book and you have a bad attitude about it, you're not going to be accepting of it, right? So having that open, holistic acceptance allowed her to use her natural skill set ability that she had to tune into this very narrow band frequency. Frequency is important because they're always going to describe that vibration is everything in the universe.
Yes, they do. And I this is the part that intrigued me more with this first statement from Ra.
Yeah.
I am Ra, and he went through that. He said, and he says this all the time, and this is what sold me. It's because I started reading the UFO bullshit to me, and it's not bullshit, but I want people to think that, because you're going to read this first part of the book, and it's going to go into detail about Carla and Dawn. It's going to talk a lot about Dawn with UFO stuff. And you're like, just another freaking UFO book. Whatever.
I can't read this stuff.
Yeah, I can't read this. So, I mean, if it's really bugging you, get past all that and go right in and just read a Raw, because he says this: we greet you in the light and love of our infinite creator. We have been called to your group because you have a need for a more advanced approach to what you call seeking the truth. We hope to offer you a somewhat different slant upon the information, which is always never the same.
Right.
That's his first statement.
So just unpacking this, I can unpack this all day, okay? So let's start with it as always and ever the same. What is that saying? That says there is one creational truth that is never going to be changed. It is immutable in what it is, right? There's just one solitary fact of what is going on in this universe, right? And they were saying, we will give you another perspective for you to internalize this information and begin to digest it and understand it from your perspective of life. That's what that is trying to say.
But you know what I loved about it more than anything, Alex, was they weren't trying to push a dogma. They were like, there's ultimate free will. Like, here we are. They say it over and over again.
Yes.
If you want to accept this, that's fine. If not, that's not. Our responsibility is not to shove information down your throat.
No, we are here in a question and answer format. You ask what you want to know, and we will give you that information.
It's so refreshing, because so much religion out there is this dogma of there's these tenets of beliefs, and you have to accept these. If you don't accept these, you're out.
No, and this is what's so great about it, because then you start to read and you're like, okay, no one's pushing me on anything. You become very open to what is being said.
Yes, well, and also not just open, but then uncomfortable, because I'm sitting there like, these people don't have an agenda?
Yeah. And you become extremely unsettled. And they don't have an agenda because guess what? If we don't figure it out now, we'll die millions and millions and millions of times, and we're going to figure it out later.
Yes.
So they're just saying, we'll give you a slant, a perspective, a distortion of reality that you can understand. So hopefully you can figure it out now rather than wait millions and millions of years making the same mistakes to try and come to the same truth that will never, ever change.
Yes.
And that is the thing they spoke about in the end. It's the thing that always was. Okay?
Yes. Yeah, they're always pushing you to that.
And what was the beginning of the sentence?
And I want you to talk about this.
Yeah, go ahead.
And spend several minutes on this. We greet you in the light and love of our infinite Creator.
Okay, all right. Wow. I want you to remove the concept of God out of your brain. Okay? That is not a thing.
Like a monotheistic view.
Yeah, remove that. What they are saying here, okay, and I'm going to take this step by step. Infinite Creator. There is this thing, this energy, that only wants to evolve. That is all it wants to do. It just wants to create over and over and over. It's this energy that believes in collaboration, unification, cooperation, altruism, giving, high ethics, high morals, love, truth, wisdom, right?
That's where we get our word creativity from.
Yeah, creativity. All it wants to do is evolve further and further and further. But how does it do that? What it does is this infinite creative source energy blossoms itself out like a flower, and it releases all this material out into the universe, and allows it to choose through its own free will what it wants to make of it.
That's so important. It's releasing this.
It's releasing it forever.
And
just
the
material is this light energy.
The light and love.
Yeah, and I'll get into love in a second, because people are like, well, what the hell is love? Is that like how I feel about somebody? And it's like, no, that's not what it is, okay? Right. Love is a cohesive glue. Love is the highest form of understanding. It is pure wisdom, okay? So when it releases this light energy has information to it, okay? But it has to be structured.
Like a fiber optic cable.
Like a fiber optic cable. But something has to pull that light together. And the love is the architecture of what pulls it together. Love is a vibrational understanding.
So is love the stream that organizes the information?
Love is the thing that...
Stream of
you're
data.
exactly right. Love is the organizing factor of what causes something to take form.
So if I look at like a laser and I shoot it out right now,
right.
What gives the laser its ability to be able to shine 500 yards away,
right,
and create that focus stream,
right? It's a focus.
Is the love part?
Is love. How does that work? Focus is intention. It is precision. And in order to focus, it is absolute understanding of one specific thing. That is what focus is.
Focus is unity, right?
Focus is unification.
Right.
And if you can begin to love, that means you can begin to focus. And when you begin to focus, you can begin to unify principles. Only begins you can actually understand them for what they truly are by themselves, right? So from an organizing fashion, when they talk about love, it is a glue of organization and the highest form of wisdom, so that they can take this light energy that the creator source puts out and organize it in a fashion to create these things that we see in and day out. Whether it be our body, the planets, the sun, universes, black holes, I don't care what it is, all of it is encompassed by this creative source energy that comes from a point of creation, evolution, and all it wants to do is evolve. And it's giving whatever it is the choice to evolve in any format it wants, because it knows that through the act of giving in the highest form of love, it realized that paradoxes or issues of dark or evil or bad and good are falsifications of the highest truth. Because all of these things that create these ideas of what we determine as bad or good all come from one unifying thing, from one single point of source. And that single point of source has no polarity.
I want to bring it down, Alex, with this creation, because I think it's so important when we look at, because he says, we greet you in the light and love of our infinite creator, and we talked about creativity. When you're an artist and you do art, and it's in its purest form, and you give it, because I think it's a great explanation, you're giving it to the world. You know, when we look at Picasso's work, or we look at, Da Vinci, or we go to the Sistine Chapel and we look up and we see all this.
I already know where you're going. It doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person. That art was just put there for the fact of it being art. There is no other reason about it.
What type of attachment is to it?
There is no attachment to it. All it is giving infinitely.
So is that creation? That
is creation itself. And that is an embodiment, a distortion of the highest truth. And that's what you need to look at. And your perspective of the world when you read these books, that's how it begins to change.
Yes.
Because now you start looking at things like that. When I look at a tree outside, the tree doesn't give a damn if you're a good person, a bad person, a murderer, a rapist. It will give you shade in the hottest day, regardless. Why? Because the tree is being exactly what the tree is. It's just being tree.
So you take someone like, let's use Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
Who went to the worst part of India and serving orphans that are leopards.
Yep.
I mean, these people have nothing to give society. Like, absolutely nothing. We would consider them like the worst of humans. You know, for if we were looking at
the worst
capitalism
in terms of circumstance.
Yes, in terms
they're
of
not terrible people.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying, can they work? No. Can they help society? Can they pay taxes? Can they? They're totally 100% dependent on someone
because they can't help themselves.
Yes, they can't help themselves. So when you take somebody like that, let's use her. I like to use earthly examples and bring it kind of down.
Yeah, bring me down for a second.
And then you have a demonstration of a clarity of love. And then those people get hope through the light of service.
Yes.
Because we're going to get into that. Because Raw talks about service a lot. That example of Mother Teresa, even though it's small finite being, is what Raw is talking about in being service with love and light. With no condition.
It's unconditional. And unconditional shows that she has the highest form of love or wisdom and understanding, because she realized that there's no difference in importance between the leopard orphan and the extremely rich man who's running some sort of huge corporation, whoever it might be, right? Or the king or prince of India at the time. I don't know how their monarchical structure or government structure works. But she views them all the same in total equality. There is no other, right? There's total unification. There's no difference between the human beings. They all share the same value because they all come with the same energy from the same place. So there's no reason to treat them any differently than anyone else. And that was her concept. And that's what made this woman saint-like, is her perspective is that these people need to be helped, and we weren't helping them because we considered them the other. But that's the highest distortion from the truth, is the fact that there is no difference between them and you. Right? Or a tree or anything else. They should be helped exactly the same. And that is the purpose. That is that service to others that I need to bridge. That was her goal. And she understood that. And by being in service to others is being in service to the highest form of laws of creation, this creative source energy, is mirroring what it is doing just on a smaller scale. And that's what she is doing. She is doing what the largest point of creation or artists have do, just in a different format.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
They're all parallels. But it's just how intense and how focused and how specific is the thing you're actually choosing to do.
No, that's perfect. So they asked the question.
Yeah.
Don asked the question, who is Ra? And we're going to end on this one, and we're going to have to get into, because we're almost at an hour here. Who is Ra? We are those who are the law of one, of unity. In our vibration, the polarities are harmonized.
Mm-hmm.
The paradoxes have a solution. We are one. We have walked your planet and seen the faces of your peoples. We now feel a great response of helping remove certain distortions that have been given to the law of one. What is unity, law of one, vibrational polarities, harmonized, paradoxes?
You're saying all the same thing. I know that you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Everything you just said is a form of calling the same exact thing something else. Okay? The law of one. The law of unification. The law that everything came from creative source energy, and all these things are a distortion or a piece of the totality of creation. What we determine to be a microphone or a JSON or this server box over here are all small pieces but encompassing of everything that is within that creative source energy itself. So when we say we are of the law of one, they understand that everything is intertwined. Everything shares the same energetic signatures, regardless of where they are. There is no imbalances because they understand the unifying principles of what encompasses at the base material of who you are or what this universe is. That goes back to that source energy, which is giving all the time. And it's that total encompassment that we all share, and that's what they're trying to say. So when they say, well, we are this, right? We are of the law of one. We are unity. Well, that's exactly what we are. That's exactly what you are, right? You share those same exact principles of that creative source energy because everything that makes up you and the way you think and that energy of the universe had to come from one point, did it not?
Yes.
Okay. So we're just an embodiment in physical form of that energy that came from a non-physical point.
So judging is
So if you go to judge someone else, you're just judging yourself. You see what I mean? And then you see,
we've talked about that before. Yeah.
You see how reflexive the world becomes, and then you start to understand the physics of things that happen with motion. Everything wants to be in equilibrium. Well, sure. When you look at a mirror, you look at yourself, right?
And if you look at a crab, you look at yourself. If you look at a tree, you're looking at yourself.
Yes, because something about that crab has an embodiment of the energy that is also within you. And that's what they're talking about. That everything is truly shared. There is no separateness, right? They're a social memory complex. Every single one of them have come together in a unifying principle to think as one mind.
And we're going to end this episode. Speaking of one mind.
Yeah.
Speaking of unified. Speaking of shared.
I know where you're going.
What is Turtle?
That's fantastic. Turtle is the world's first data marketplace for individuals to sell their information online.
So how did your company, because I know you did this, we're going to delve into something that's going to be interesting.
Oh, you're digging up worms, man. You're digging up some worms.
How is Turtle based on the law of one?
Thank you for asking. Because of the deepest point of appreciation, I'm glad you're putting it out there in the airwaves, and you've pulled this out of me. Okay, because you understand how my mind works now.
Mm-hmm. You created this company.
I created this company. Okay, the company is but a reflection of who I am. Okay, it is a marketplace, a place where two parties can come together to collaborate for one unified thought for the evolution of both parties together. What does that mean? You are the person who creates that data, okay, and then someone needs that data to then advance themselves on the other side, and they're willing to give you some sort of value for it. So the consciousness of what we all think, do, and create are housed in one unified place, right?
Right.
Which everyone can come in and share and receive that value from one another.
Data social memory complex.
It's essentially a data social memory complex in the most technological, philosophical aspect of how you would run something like that. And that's what Turtle is. It gives everyone the option to evolve with the information we create every day and also receive that value from it. Because we've lived in a world where there is polarity. But when you look at the higher truth of all these things, there is no true polarity to anything that's going on. And to understand, if you could create something that is a mirror of that truth and that higher form of balance, and find a way to tip those scales from black and white but put them back into gray, where you blend both sides together, that's where you have Turtle. It's the world's first data marketplace for people to sell their information. And it's free to sign up. You get paid for everything you create. You're helping yourself and the globe at the same time. And it takes you about 15 seconds to create an account.
And it's Turtle.co.
Tartle.co.
Perfect. And you're ranking on YouTube videos.
Yeah.
You're getting past the people that misspell turtle.
Turtle, or the sea turtles in the water.
It's not sea turtles.
And speaking of art, there's a lot of creativity that goes into building things,
right,
like websites. And it speaks a lot to the form and fashion of someone's business and what they truly care about and what they're trying to project,
right,
what they're trying to give, so that they can receive something from the public. And I know that there's a great business locally around here that helps small to medium-sized businesses.
Right.
And I believe, last I checked, they're called Rigby Digital.
Yes, thank you.
And Rigby Digital did a phenomenal job with higher density living and many other great businesses locally here in the area. And they delivered extreme amounts of value, and they give all day long, and the payback is enormous for their customers.
And I also think, when you're looking at a website, because that's what we're looking at when we judge something where we're deciding to transact, on a business side of things, whether we go, right now we're drinking, where is this wine from?
That's the Federalist. I don't know.
The Federalist. We're drinking some Cab Sav, federalistwines.com.
Yeah.
We could go to that website right now. This is phenomenal wine. We can go to federalistwines.com, and we're going to say, okay, the wine's badass. We go to the website. If the website's shitty,
people have already judged. They're not going to do anything with it.
Yes, exactly.
Your website is determinant of the business quality now.
Yes, it is.
People won't trust you if you have a shitty website.
Yeah. You know how many times I've seen amazing companies?
Yeah.
And then their digital marketing footprint has been kind of
Yeah. And so what you do is you elevate their footprint.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, you evolve businesses to where they need to be at this time.
But that's why I'm really picky who I work with. On the, especially the consulting, I talked with a company the other day, and I was just like, I don't feel your culture aligns with our company. I just don't I don't want to promote something that is going to bring it like your company in, and it's the same way, and I'm evolving into this even more, where I'm willing to say no to somebody, just for the simple fact is, I don't want to put something that's out there that's going to cause harm to mankind.
It shouldn't.
For a monetary value. So, when I look at something that I'm doing, specifically the other day, I looked at something, I was like, the way that this owner is talking and the way that they're doing business, it doesn't line up with higher density living.
They're not they're not your tuning fork,
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so I was just like, nah, I think I'll pass on this one. And just for the simple fact of, why would I promote something, or why would Tardo promote something that would be a disservice, and this is from reading The Law of One, that would be a disservice to mankind, because I'm here to be of light and love and service. And if my company doesn't align with that, which I spend most of my time working on, then am I become, and your girlfriend's talked about this, would I become a hypocrite then?
And that's what you don't want to be.
Yes, and I don't think any of us want to be.
And people will see through that.
Yes.
People have become very intelligent. They actually
Watch
have.
Goldman Sachs come to me this week.
Yeah.
Hey, we want you to build this website.
Jason's like, where do I
10 million.
Where do I sign? No, but that's the thing. People are much better at seeing through bullshit now.
Yes.
So it would behoove you. That would be my word for today. Behoove.
If you have great culture,
yeah,
put it on your website.
Put it on
your
your
website. That should be the number one thing.
If you have great purpose and social missions,
yes,
put it on the damn website.
It's so funny to me when I go through, because I've done hundreds of websites. It's so funny to me when I go to their Google Analytics and look, and everybody clicks on About Us. Every website has an About Us page.
They all want to read it. They want to know you.
I always tell companies, why don't you make the About Us your front page?
That's what I've done on Tartle.
Yes.
Everything about us is on the front page.
And I'm going to give you a hint right now. You're About Us. If you have great culture at your company and you're actually living higher density living principles, and we're going to get into that on business side, put it out there right on the front page.
There's nothing to be ashamed of.
No.
That's the highest. That is the best service you could possibly do. Why would you not put it out there?
And you're going to demand a profit from that.
Yeah, you want to know.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, because good work drives good incentive, and good incentive drives good profit.
Yes, of course.
Right? That's all you got to do. It always pays back.
So we're going to get into Raw a little bit more deeper. We're going to go right on the next episode.
We'll delve into it.
We're going to delve right into it and get right into the heart of the messages.
I think it was important that we gave an introduction to everybody. And again, we suggest that everyone go through and introduce themselves to the book, even in a PDF format for free online, so you don't have to spend the money to invest into it. But maybe read the first couple chapters to just get a flavor for what we are talking about.
And that's www.llresearch.org. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Jason.